Hi guys, we are here at the Toronto Comic Con and we're sitting with who is probably my favorite artist of the modern era of comics, Chris Sprouse. How are you doing today, Chris?
Fine. How are you?
I'm great. I noticed here you've got a Star Wars print. You were actually the artist on a Star Wars story, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. How long ago was that published?
1996. We did it in 1995 and it came out in 96, right when the market crashed, so it has the distinction, I've been told, of being the first Star Wars comic that didn't make any money.
Oh,
so
that's terrible. That's terrible. Now, are you yourself? Were you a huge fan of Star Wars?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I think it got me into comics.
Sure.
It sounds kind of convoluted, but basically, what happened was the first two issues of the Marvel Star Wars comic came out before the movie.
Yes.
And my brother and I had those. We were Marvel fans, so we were buying comics. And I was like, this looks neat. And when the movie came out, the movie was so good and blew us away so much, we went back and looked at the comics and was like, this doesn't look anything like the movie. So I drew my own Star Wars comics and I tried to get it as accurate as possible, like the movie, and that's how I started.
That's great. Now, who is your biggest artistic influence?
Michael Golden, he's the more modern influence of mine, and by that I mean once I started drawing comics for myself, superhero comic things, when I was a kid, I liked him, but probably the primary influence I've had my entire life is Hergé. I was a huge Tintin fan.
Okay.
We lived overseas and my parents bought us Tintin comics because we had nothing else to do. We had to stay inside, couldn't do much else, so they got us into comics, and Tintin was the first thing I remember reading, period, books,
Sure.
comics, whatever, and it's been a lifelong influence, and I think it comes out in like the stuff I'm attracted to in comics and the way I draw, just very clean lines and stuff,
Yes.
I think goes all the way back to Hergé.
The thing I really like about your art is the people look appealing, the textures look appealing, the line work is appealing. You consciously try to make your art attractive.
I spent a lot of time working on the characters. Thank you for saying they're attractive. I mean, I hope they are, but the flip side of that is if I ever have to draw somebody gritty and tough and mean, I hope they don't look too attractive.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I'm not sure what it is. It could just be more the appeal of the clean line look. If you read Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud, he talks about one of the reasons manga is so popular is the simplicity of the characters allows you to identify more
Sure.
and project your own stuff onto these characters. And I wonder if that's going on with more simply rendered characters. But that's interesting. I wouldn't say my characters are attractive, so it's interesting to hear that. I've never heard somebody say that before.
Interesting. Okay, well, how about
But
this? Considering, like you said, the line work is very clean.
Yes.
Now, to a more modern reader, you might think, well, maybe it doesn't take Mr. Sprouse as long to draw his page as someone else. It actually does take you quite a long time.
Yes. A lot of that is because I'm drawing and redrawing, and that's where a lot of my time is taken up, just fixing and redrawing.
Sure. Well, let me tell you, it looks like your rejected pages are better than a lot of other artists' finished pages. That's just my opinion,
you.
but you've worked with Alan Moore for several years. Now, how much of that, is it over the phone? Was it one-on-one, or?
At first, I worked on Supreme with him first. That was where I first connected with him, and he had actually finished his run on it, so I had no contact whatsoever with him. But he called me to propose the Tom Strong series, and we talked on the phone a few times. But mostly, we communicated through his writing. Like, when he would write the script, he'd write a page or two that was just talking to me, how are you doing, and
sure.
hope everything's going well, liked what you did, and here's some ideas I have for the future. But it was that and the phone. I never made it to England, and to this day, I've gone to England twice since then, and people say, you should drop in on Alan, and it's like, oh, everybody thinks they can go over there and just drop in on him. I know how I would feel if I'm at home working or in my pajamas or something, and people just drop by to say, I like your work. It would be nice, but strange. And I don't want to be that for Alan. So
I'm sure you'd have more to talk about just that, like the fact that you work together.
But and then there's the part where it's really intimidating. I mean, he's Alan Moore. Even though I've worked with him, it was still,
Yes.
wow. I felt like I was out of my league the entire time. Just, this is Alan freaking Moore.
He certainly is something else. My final question, this is a little bit controversial. How do you feel about Before Watchmen?
I have nothing against them. If Alan and Dave don't own those characters, frankly, DC is able to do whatever they want with them. If they violated any sort of contractual stuff, then that's not so good. But personally, I just don't have much interest. The story was the story, and I will... It sounds like good creators. I know I'll look at them. Other than that, I have very little feeling about it, negative or positive. It just sort of seems maybe a little unnecessary, but you know, they own the characters. They can do with them what they want, and they will. You know, like, I know one day, well, maybe this is getting conceited, but I know one day when I'm not working on it or I'm gone, that somebody will bring back Tom Strong. And,
Sure.
you know, I don't actually own the characters, so, you know, more power to them. Hope they do it well, is all I can say. And I hope with Watchmen, I hope they don't tarnish, you know, what was there. But if they do, you know, the original graphic novel's out there. It's never going to go away, so you still have that work. It's still complete. They're not George Lucasing it and going in and changing
Sure.
the actual Watchmen comic, so it's always going to be there, and I don't think this will affect it very much at all, really. Comic Book Syndicate, assemble!